Days of cheap Japanese compacts is long over. Today, they either fall into three categories: clapped out, expensive, or both. So with that being said, what is a car enthusiast supposed to do? I made a list of 5 underappreciated, under-the-radar cars to pick up now. So why are these cars underappreciated? It could have been due to a lack of marketing, demand, or even being overshadowed by a stablemate. I went ahead and set a couple of parameters. It had to have an available stick-shift transmission. Hidden doesn't mean cheap. So the G35s are out. Nothing from the 90s. And sadly, that does break my heart. Actual sporting intentions. So we're not just getting grandma's base model Corolla. I also have a few honorable mentions that I'm going to bring up with each car I talk about. So that being said, let's start with number 1. The Mitsubishi Lancer GTS. The GTS was the warm version of the Lancer, sitting below the Ralliart and the Evo. It gained a larger 2.4-liter engine in 2009, making it a better enthusiast pick for the 2008 model year. Now the engine is Mitsubishi's 2.4 Mivik engine. It has variable valve timing. It's their version of VTEC, pretty much. Now the reason why I'm calling this car out specifically is before the Evo came out for this new generation Lancer, this was the hottest version you could get. Horsepower was, a partly 160 horsepower, but equipped with the manual transmission, it could do 0 to 60 in 7.7 seconds. And of course, let's talk about the pros of this car. The biggest one is the Evo-inspired styling. It came with a lip body kit. It had 18-inch wheels, a spoiler. It was known for sharp commutative steering and better low-end torque than the 2.0 liter. And plus, since it's also a Mitsubishi Lancer, there's also a plethora of parts that you can add on to it. But there are some cons. The interior feels cheap and plasticky. This was definitely during that time period where Mitsubishi was trying to cost cut while pushing cars out. With a CVT engine, because yes, unfortunately you could get a CVT with this trim level, it gets drony on the freeway, and let's be honest, CVTs are just terrible. They're just terrible. It's great if you don't care about cars, but if you have a single iota of sporting intention, just skip the CVT. So let's talk about the honorable mention, the Mitsubishi Ralliart. Now honestly, the Ralliart should have been the real choice, but it's held back by one thing. If you don't know what the Ralliart is, the Ralliart was the equivalent to the Subaru WRX, because you had the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo, which would match up with the WRX STI. You had just your Mitsubishi Lancers going against the Garden Variety Imprezas. When it came to the Ralliart, its goal was supposed to be a competitor to a standard WRX. The thing is, what made the Ralliart different was it didn't have the wide body kit, it was turbocharged, but it was detuned, so it was kind of really in that comfortable middle ground. And the question is, why didn't I put it on this list? The sole transmission offering, I kid you not, was an automated manual. What? Not an automatic, not a normal stick shift, an automated manual. Now, from the research I've done, because I've looked into this car quite extensively, because it seems like it's such a great performance bargain. You could even get in that weird sort of a 5-door hatchback shape the Lancer came in for a little bit. The transmission is unreliable, the parts are hard to find, and it will eventually one day break. So that alone is just like, okay, it's not easy to fix, it's going to be a pain in the butt, it's a real shame. It's a real shame that Mitsubishi just kind of got so close to making perfection with the Ralliart and saddled it with a really weird transmission. From what I recall, they never put this transmission in any other Lancer. It was only for this one model. Go figure. Number 2. The 2011 to 14 Ford Mustang. The V6. Now look, I know Mustang usually means a V8 engine, and hey, I'm one of the faithful. Sure, I've had a V6 in my time, I've even had a 4-cylinder Fox body, but yeah, Mustangs and V8 engines, they just go together like peas and carrots. However, I will say, this model year was the first time that the V6 wasn't seen as a complete penalty box. Unlike prior generations that had the 3.8-liter pushrod, or up until 2010, the 4.0-liter engine that they used in the Ford Explorer, the 3.7-liter V6 was a clean sheet design that honestly was such a huge jump in power and performance that I could not leave it off this list. Packing 305 horsepower. Keep in mind, 2010, the Ford Mustang GT was making, with its 4.6-liter V8, was packing 310 horsepower. The fact that the next model year, the V6 Mustang, 305, that alone right there should be enough to put it on this list. But wait, there's more. So not only do we have the 305 horsepower V6, 0 to 60 in 5.1 to 5.4 seconds, it also came with a performance package. So the fact that you could get a V6 performance package that has stiffer springs, a more aggressive rear axle ratio, and the fact that it was actually lighter in the nose made this a really solid performance bargain. A lot of people believe the S197 is the best looking of the retro style Mustangs, particularly the 13 to 14. Now there are a couple of cons with this car. One, it is a solid rear axle vehicle. Now me, with my New Edge Mustang, I'm so used to a solid rear axle that it's pretty much null and void. The transmission did come with the MT82, which sometimes has issues of, gear lockout or being notchy when driven hard. And for some reason, Ford put this two-piece drive shaft that will explode at 113 miles per hour. Now, keep in mind that drive shaft is only for non-performance package Mustangs, but, just make sure if you decide to go really fast, maybe you're trying to get out of Texas or something like that, stick to 112 so you don't go kaboom. I remember seeing YouTube videos about this 10 to 15 years ago, and it was absolutely strange. Okay, let's talk about the honorable mention. The 2015 to 16 S550 V6, and also, the first version of the EcoBoost Mustang. I actually remember driving the V6 S550s, and they were great. And honestly, it was a solid upgrade because now you're in the newer body style, you still have the same 300 horsepower, and you could get these for really cheap. The only downside is that they were really limited with options. There was no upgraded performance package. I believe you still had the limited slip differential, but if you're trying to get leather, an upgrade stereo, no, it's not going to happen. Now with the EcoBoost on their hand, we did have performance packages, with the upgraded gauges, suspension, and I believe they even did a high horsepower version later in the S550 chassis life. Here's the thing. I personally am a fan of the EcoBoost, but I know a lot of Mustang people aren't. I'll be the first to say it, I think it has a horrible exhaust note. But I do know that with long-term reliability, there is some trepidation. And the fact that everyone knew that the EcoBoost was such a performance bargain, which kind of goes against one of my parameters of has to be sort of under the radar, the EcoBoost wasn't. When it came out, people were like, oh wow, it's a modern day SVO. It does over 300 horsepower, and with a tune, you're looking to be in the 400 horsepowers, which means there's a better chance you're going to find something that's beaten. So take that with a grain of salt. Number 3. Nissan Sentra Nismo, 2017 to 19. While this doesn't have a significant power bump over the SR Turbo, the Nismo Sentra did receive structural bracing and a much improved suspension setup. Packing 188 horsepower, you could get this down to 7 seconds 0 to 60. The pros for this car was the interior, surprisingly. It had Alcantara wrapped sport seats, a reinforced chassis, and improved braking performance. But the downside is that you kind of expect a bit more than 188 horsepower from the Nismo badge. I feel definitely in this era of Nissan, and this is when Nissan was just kind of throwing the Nismo badge on anything, just trying to make a quick buck. I mean, this generation Sentra is honestly one of the ugliest cars ever, and is known for just being cheap. Not cheerful, just cheap. So the fact that they threw the Nismo badge on here and add some body modifications, that's something you're going to have to take or leave, because that leads me right into the honorable mention. Same year, the Nissan Sentra SR Turbo. You're getting the same power as the Nismo, you're not getting the body kit. So that's going to be up to you if that's a win or a loss. And honestly, this is more of a tie, because on one hand, if you want the more racy bits, if you want to actually have the Nismo badge, no matter the cost of your sanity, you have the Nissan Nismo. If you don't care about that and you just have to have a turbo Nissan, I would consider the SR Turbo. Next.
No! God, please, no! No!
The Kia Forte SX 2014 to 19. Turbocharged, multi-link suspension, manual transmission. The goodies of the coupe, but in a more practical body style. Now the SX trim did come in both the Kia Forte coupe, but what I'm interested in is the Forte 5, the hatchback. Because with this 5-door hatchback, you are getting, as I mentioned, the turbocharger, the multi-link suspension, you can get in a stick shift, and horsepower-wise, it's pretty respectable. Consider this similar to the Civic Si. Horsepower is 201 horsepower with a 0 to 60 between 6.4 to 6.8 seconds. Not too bad for what is virtually an economy car. Strong straight line performance. I believe it actually was a little bit quicker than the Civic Si of this generation. High quality interior space, standard features. and also standard features that are usually reserved for a luxury car. Now here's the downsides. The suspension can feel crashy. My wife actually has a Kia Forte. It's not the cool one, it's the normal one. And I can definitely attest that, like, yeah, over bumps, it does feel very crashy, even with just stock suspension. You know, the steering precision isn't as good as the GTI or the Focus ST. And of course, you know, if you're looking for a turbo hot hatch, you probably are going to be looking for the GTI or a Focus or Fiesta ST. But that's kind of why I'm bringing up this Forte. If you want something that's a little bit more under the radar that hasn't been through, 7 owners, here's an option, Forte SX5. And let's round off the list with something German. The Volkswagen Jetta Sport from 2022 to 2024. Consider this a baby Jetta GLI. Manual transmission, turbocharged, German good looks. It uses the base 1.5 liter turbo engine, but it does actually have a couple of extra performance parts added to it. From what I recall, there's the base, there's the sport version, and then of course, the rank and file tend to get everything above that with an automatic transmission until you get to the GLI. Let's talk about the performance of it. So the 1.5 is not exactly breaking down the barn door, but it will do 158 horsepower, but most notably 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. That's surprisingly quick for such little power. Now the real pros of this car is the torque vectoring differential. I do yearn for the days of, mechanical differentials like what's in my Mustang. So this is one of those electronic ones where they kind of squeeze one brake pad to make sure it gains traction. But the fact is, on the sport model, on the very base, you actually do get a torque vectoring differential, which honestly I don't think you get until you get up to the GLI. So you do get that performance enhancement. And this is going to sound goofy, but this is great fuel economy. I think highway, it does 42 miles per gallon, which, as an elder millennial, I do remember 40 miles per gallon being like this weird elusive number only for like a Toyota Prius. But the fact that it's in kind of a understated sleeper sedan is pretty credible. Now, there are some cons. Unlike the GLI, which gets a multi-link, independent suspension, this car is saddled with a torsion beam rear suspension, which is similar to a live rear axle, which means you do have the possibility of the car feeling a bit unstable over really bumpy roads. But hey, that's kind of the price you pay for having a very baby GLI. The interior can feel a little bit gloomy with hard plastics, but to me that's kind of a null and void point. If you agree with this list, let me know down in the comments of what car I missed. As far as I'm concerned, these are 5 great hidden enthusiast cars that you could probably pick up for fairly cheap, and you can also have the assurance that no one else has tried to modify it, tune it. I'm Dane, the channel is Brown Roush. I like talking cars and just in general car shenanigans. Let's get started. Hey, thank you so much for watching Brown Roush. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do so. I think I have the button over here. I'm really big into data and just make sure everything's right. So leave me a comment down below about what you liked about this video, what you don't. I actually do read all the comments, even the mean ones. And feel free to follow me on Instagram, TikTok. It's Brown_Roush.